Today we're going to be comparing the Tamron 35 to 150mm f2 to 2.8 versus the Tamron 70 to 180mm f2.8. There's a difference of 30mm on the long end and the difference of 35mm on the wide end. However, the 35mm on the wide end makes a massive difference, according to every single Asian alive. We'll be going over autofocus, sharpness, bokeh, and more. Chapters provided in the description. Let's get started with build and handling.
Let's talk about the shared pros of these lenses. Both of them have full weather sealing. Both of them have this lock, which prevents the lens from creeping. And that is about it. The Tamron is fairly basic. We'll go over what the 35 to 150 has over it, which is focus hold button. But it does more than just focus hold. You can do AB focus, infinity focus. You can toggle aperture control versus manual focus. It is pretty darn good. That's with this custom 1, 2, and 3. And it has this USB input, so you could update it directly just with a USB-C cable. And this is just a little rubber grommet I have to keep it weather sealed. When it comes to the feel of it, this Tamron is mostly plastic. I mean, both of them are plastic, but this one feels especially more plasticky. This thing right here is plastic. It's not rubber like this. You see, it sounds hollow. It is plastic right here. So this focus ring is plastic, and this one is rubberized. It's rubber, and the positioning is different as well. You can see that the focus is here and the focus is up here, so it's just a little bit different to use. This newer Tamron has this grip right here. It has the contour and it makes it easier to hold. I mean, this isn't bad at all because this is all rubber, so it's really not an issue. What I can say about this plastic build is different. This one aesthetically looks better because it's darker toned. And there is a difference, and the difference is this right here. This is really loose plastic. If you see me, I'm squeezing it, and you can see the gap right here because of me just squeezing it. It could be a good or a bad thing. From my experience, these Tamrons, the older generation ones, they're really durable. I've dropped one before, and because of the flexibility, it's survived, and I'm really grateful for it. This thing, I can't say that it will survive a drop just because of its heft. It's so heavy that if it drops, something's getting destroyed.
35 to 150 winner in this category. Both of these lenses use VXD motors, and will it make a difference? Let's find out. Both lenses use the Tamron's VXD motor, and it should be good, and it is good. This is the 35 to 150 on the left, the 70 to 180 on the right, and they have no problems tracking me at all. It's as responsive as my kids when I shut off their Wi-Fi.
Wow!
In the lowest of light levels, these lenses slow down like a stoner driving. Other than that, they work extremely well in the lowest of light levels. We are at ISO 25.6, and there is only one light shining in the corner of the room. It's very small and dim, and it's no problem. It's going to be a tie in this category. Next up is sharpness, 3x zoom versus 4x zoom. Starting off at the center, wide open. Both lenses are pretty good. Keep note that the Tamron 35 to 150 is at f2.5. We go towards the mid frame, and the 35 to 150 is actually a little bit sharper. And at the edges, it is a similar story. You can see in this detail right here, the 35 to 150 is just a hair sharper. Moving on to f8, and it adds to the lead. We'll just stop down to f5.6 now. Since we're here, 5.6, the edge still holds the lead with the 35 to 150. Mid frame, yeah, it still holds the lead. It did get sharper for the 70 to 180. And at the center, they are neck and neck. Jumping to 135, the 35 to 150 has a slight advantage in the center. And we move towards the mid frame and they are just about the same. And when it comes to the edges, the 70 to 180 has a slight advantage. At 5.6, both lenses sharpen up. However, the 35 to 150 is still slightly behind. This sign is a little bit sharper. It's still too small to read out. And the center is identical. Disclaimer, the far end is going to be an improper comparison. Say both lenses are sharp in the center. Mid frame, because of the framing is different. Here's the 180 and it is darn sharp, and 35 to 150 is very sharp here as well. The edges are definitely okay for the 35 to 150 wide open, as well as the 70 to 180. Both have good sharpness all around. There is some softening, but I wouldn't say it's bad. We're gonna go here f11. I'm not sure why I stopped down that far, but it happens. The 70 to 180 is definitely sharper and it's more magnified. You can see this fence detail on the 35 to 150. It's not as crispy as the 70 to 180, and the 70 to 180 is more magnified. And the center, they are fairly comparable. It's just that they are at different magnification levels. Here it is, and the 70 to 180 is just a blown up version of it compared to the 35 to 150. So on the wider end, the 35 to 150 definitely behaves better. On the longer end, the 70 to 180 has an advantage. So it's going to be a draw. Considering the 35 to 150 is newer, is the bokeh all new or did it inherit from the 70 to 180? Let's have a look. I think it's safe to say that both lenses produce excellent bokeh. Here's 70mm close up and it's soft and blurry. What more can you ask for? If you're looking for big aperture prime level, well, this isn't it. However, I don't think anyone is going to be complaining about this. Sure, you can find some flaws like the onionings if you really zoom in, and this is really zoomed in. However, I don't expect most people to be looking that deep at bokeh. Here's the long end, and we're at 150 and 180 respectively. That 30 extra, does it give you anything more? Not really. There is a little bit more compression, but it's hardly even noticeable or worth talking about. Sure, these are not perfect. However, they're high level results and you really can't ask for more unless you're going with a large prime. I would consider a draw in this scenario. Changing it up for CA and LoCA, let's have a look. Here it is in practice. I was just checking out gear. As you can see, the CA is nice and low. There's a small amount. This is with the Tamron 35 to 150. Here's the 70 to 180. You're not going to see much of any outline. These lenses are very clean in that regard. Here's a 70 to 180 LoCA test, and the point of focus is right here. And there is some purpling you can see right here, and some greens in the background. It's a small amount. Keep in mind, I am 100%. Here we are with the 35 to 150. Here's the full image. And let's look at the background right here, because the focus is towards the front, and here's the back, and the bokeh CA just isn't there. I mean, you could kind of see it here. It's a little bit green, but you're really peeping at that point. So in this scenario, both lenses perform very well and it's a draw. Next up is flare and Sunstars. Typically, telephoto lens behave worse when it comes to flare. How do these lenses behave? Let's see. The 35 to 150 is known for not having the best flare performance on the wide end. However, once you go towards the longer end, it seems to perform very well. These lenses, they just behave differently. The flare on the 70 to 180 it's more distinct, while the flare on the 35 to 150, the blobs are just bigger and less distinct. So it's not about one being over the other. It's just a different style of look. You can see it right here. It's just different, not exactly better. Neither lenses have a ghosting problem. There is some contrast loss, so use a hood if that's a concern. The Sunstar performance is quite similar. Keep in mind that at longer focal lengths, you just can't make the Sunstars very prominent or good looking. The Tamron does have the advantage of the 35mm. However, we cannot take that into account because this is overlapping range, and the flare on the 35 to 150 does lag behind when it's stopped down to f16 like this. It's just more prominent. Winner in this category is the 70 to 180. Next up are the video features, and this one is a bit different. I redid these tests. Just have a look. I wasn't comfortable with the previous parfocal test, which was performed on the A7 Mark III. Now I'm using it on the A7 IV, and it's easier to focus in, and guess what? I am getting parfocal performance with both lenses. A little change goes a long way, and here it is at 150 and 180. I want to start off by saying that the 35 to 150 does have focus breathing on the wide end. However, that reduces to near nothing on the long end, and the 70 to 180 performs just as well. This is around 100mm, and both lenses have low breathing, like my episode with COVID. Both are winners in this category. Let's discuss size and range. Of course, the 70 to 180 is smaller. There's less range. However, how much smaller? Let's have a look. Both of them fit inside this Think Tank Digital Holster 10 as long as you pop the bottom out. In practice, the Tamron 35 to 150 does look beefier, and it is. It does weigh a good bit more. This one is around 810 grams. And this one is around 1200 grams. So that's a difference of almost 400 grams and 50%. When I'm using these type of lenses, they generally fit in the same type of bags, and they take up the same amount of space because in those situations, the length matters more than the width. However, some people may disagree, including my wife. We'll be breaking down value next. Cost versus range, aperture. The 35 to 150 comes in at roughly 1900, 70 to 180 at roughly 1200, a difference of 600 or 50% more than the 70 to 180, and you're getting 35 to 70 range, and it is wide. I mean, it's a lot wider than just 70 to 180 alone. However, with the 70 to 180, you're getting an additional 30mm. It sounds like a lot in terms of angle of view. It's a moderate amount. I believe it's from 11 to 9 degrees angle of view. So compared to first party lenses, sure, both of these lenses are great values. They're both high-end optics, but due to the sheer cost of the 35 to 150, it is $1,900. It is in high demand. As you can see, it's 4 months after being released and it's still not in stock. What I can say is that at the end of the day, you're spending $600 less for the 70 to 180, and you can use that towards pairing, say, a 20 to 75. You don't have to have all the money out at front. This is $900, so it's only $300 more, and you can get this lens as well as this one and have an overall more rangy experience. It's not a lot of range, but nonetheless, it is still an advantage. With the 35 to 150, you have the advantage that you have an all-in-one that is extremely competent, and having these button switches all in one is consistency. I mean, when you're using it throughout the entire range, you'll have the AB focus, focus hold, and infinity focus. And that's where the inconsistencies of having two different lenses falls into place. This one doesn't have a button, this one does, and this one has a different look as the USB-C, the other one doesn't. However, the money saved here is still money saved, and it's going to be the winner in this category. Both these lenses offer a high quality bokeh, sharpness, and do what they're supposed to do. If only these qualities existed in my soulmate. The 35-150 is a high performing all-in-one lens that you can just go solo and be happy, where the 70-180 is more of a complementary lens to go with something like the 28-75 or the 35-1.4 G Master. This is assuming that you already have something and you don't want to get rid of it because it's troublesome. So it's the path of least resistance, like getting married in your 40s.
Wow.
It may be a minor nitpick, but my biggest issue with the 70-180 is that it doesn't match any other lenses I have in the range. If I'm using the 28-75, there's a button, 35 G Master, there's a button switch, aperture wheel. At least match it on something. I know I'm just nagging at this point. The 70-180 was a lens I've been dreaming about for a long time. It was small, compact, fast, and then something happened in 2020. So I didn't get anything because I wouldn't be able to use it, and then things started to get normal again. And then Tamron released the 35-150, and it's amazing. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Like, sub, share. See you on the next one. Take care.